Hello everybody and welcome to my channel Wisconsin Hugs. My name is Tony Grillo and this is the third installment of a comedy bit that I've been doing here on my YouTube channel. I call it Star Trek Football Talk. And if you haven't been following this, essentially the captain here, Jean-Luc Picard, is quarterback for a new team that's been put together by the Gene Roddenberry, the owner. And they are in the Federation Division. And this new team has Picard leading them as the quarterback. And here he is training really hard, wearing a Seattle Seahawks jersey. And he's also taken a moment to take a picture with his a co-star in the X-Men movies, a buddy of his. And they both have football jerseys on, but they're holding a soccer ball. And in the very first game of their inaugural season, they wound up, they thought they were going to be taking on a guy with a really cool football name. His name is Gropper Zorn. And they were a new addition to the Federation Division. And there was kind of a mystery as to how the heck they got so good so quickly. And Picard was supposed to play those guys and maybe find out the secret to how good they got. What was the secret behind their success, their rapid success? Because, you know, Picard wants to win a Super Bowl. And so he's trying to find every single way he can to you know, give his team an advantage. But all of a sudden, while they were on their way to take on Gropper Zorn and his team known as the Bandy, this fellow showed up. His name is Q, and he belongs to a football team called the Q Continuum. In fact, every single player that's on that team is also named Q. And these guys are the world champions, or actually the galaxy champions, not the world champions. And not only are they just so hard to beat, but they also referee their own games. So the cards are heavily stacked against you. They pretty much got everything figured out, every advantage that they could take. But surprisingly, they wanted to, basically, Q showed up because they wanted to send a message to Picard and his team that you guys suck and you shouldn't even be playing football. You're not at our level. You should just go back home and sit on the couch. You know, maybe take on other jobs, but you don't deserve to be football players. And Picard wound up winning that game, surprisingly. And the Q had to go home with egg on their face. Well, now the Enterprise team has their full roster, and they would be facing another Federation divisional rival from Team Sol Tsiolokovski. And as you all are well aware of, Picard always gives his pep talk to his team, and then he'll say, engage. And that's exactly what Team Enterprise is going to do. Now, if you don't know who Tsiolokovski is, which I happen to not know this either, so this was news to me. He is a Russian inventor and a rocket expert. Okay? So he's a Russian inventor and a rocket expert from 1857 to 1935. And he basically wrote books on rocketry. And he proposed the construction of multi-stage rockets, which is what they do nowadays when they launch rockets into space. And he was the one that came up with the idea that that's the way it should be done. And the Federation named a team after him to honor him. However, the team Tsiolokovski, they were kind of like known as the Detroit Lions of the Federation. The team had a history of losing and bad draft picks, and then the few stars they did acquire, like Megatron here, with his cool nickname, Calvin Johnson, or stars like Barry Sanders, or even guys like Matt Stafford, they would wind up leaving the team. Barry left just being short of breaking Walter Payton's all-time rushing record. And Megatron, he left as well, and was upset that he had to return a bunch of money that was given to him because he didn't finish out his contract. And in the case with Stafford, he went over to the Rams and actually won a Super Bowl. So the Enterprise team was, after their big win, it could be a little understandable that they were feeling a little bit cocky while they were working out, getting ready for their next game. And they did make some changes to their uniforms. Some of the crew members there, like Troy and Tasha Yar, were going to be wearing their cheerleading outfits anymore. You can see here Tasha is taking her skirt off and put on the full uniform of the football team, but this fellow behind her, he's still wearing a skirt. And the team's owner, Gene Roddenberry, otherwise affectionately known as the Great Bird in the Sky, never really offered any explanations as to why the team wouldn't be wearing the skirts anymore. Some speculate that it was probably because the fact that they had crewmen on that ship wearing them might have been frowned upon during that time period in the 80s when this show was being made. But by the second season, nobody wore them anymore. And here we see a meme, that pretty much accurately describes the futility of the history of the Lions. I mean, they even had a season where they didn't have one win at all. For the love of God, let the Lions win. So here we are at the football field, which is surrounded by a red dwarf star that's about ready to explode. And they're getting kind of crazy messages from the Tsiolokovski team. Things like, I hope you brought lots of pretty boys with you to party with us. And, Picard had never heard of that kind of trash talking before. Especially from a team that has a history of losing. But they did the coin flip, and Geordi came back, Geordi LaForge, and they won the toss, and they elected to receive. And when the kick was made, Geordi was the return man. He caught the ball, surprisingly, for being a blind man, but it turns out he can actually see really well with his visor. Unfortunately, he ran the wrong way with the ball, and he ran towards the opposite goal line, towards his own goal line. And all of a sudden his team is running after him, telling him, hey, you need to turn around. And, well, he ran it all the way into the end zone and spiked the ball, and the referees called it a safety. And so Picard noticed that Geordi was really sweating profusely, and he ordered Geordi to be looked at by the team doctor, and they ran a tricorder on him, and they realized he had been infected by some sort of contaminant. And it was really apparent that this contaminant was all of a sudden starting to affect everybody on the team, including the android Data. As you can see here, Security Chief Lieutenant Tasha Yar took Lieutenant Commander Data aside, and they went back into the locker room and started scoring touchdowns on each other. And not only that, but we see here that Counselor Troy was all over First Commander Will Riker. And, well, she wanted to fool around right on the I don't know what you call that, the examining bed in the ship. And it affected the team doctor and our star quarterback, the Frenchman, the first Frenchman to ever play in the NFL, Jean-Luc Picard. As you can see here, they're suddenly about to kiss. Now, Picard is trying everything he can to keep his senses. And, he really wants to win this game badly. And he realizes that they are now down by 2 points, and he can't seem to get any offense going because this pesky little kid, who is the doctor's son, a brilliant kid, by the way. His name is Wesley Crusher. Wesley had a science fair project that he created where he could mimic voices, and it can also create tractor beams. And he got tired of begging to join the team. And so he decided he was just going to step in, and he wanted to be the quarterback. He wanted to play, And he was getting sick of, Picard and all the other mean players on the team telling him, no, Wesley, you're too young. You're too small. You're not smart enough. We don't want you on our team. And Wesley's like, well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to take over this ship, and I'm going to lead the team. And that's exactly what he did. He hooked his little science fair project up to engineering, and he, instead of using a tractor beam, he, reconfigured his little science fair project so that it emitted a repulsor beam, like a force field, so nobody could get into engineering. And Tasha Yar and Data were still getting it on, so she didn't care what was going on, which kind of means she may not be very good at her job. And then we have this knucklehead right here, who I don't know where he came from. He doesn't really even have a name. He's probably in the credits. He's known as Knucklehead. But he pledges loyalty to Captain Wesley, and Wesley lets him in engineering, and he decides it'd be a lot of fun to pull all the isolinear chips out of all the computer consoles in engineering, and then he would stack them in like building blocks. And Wesley's feeling pretty smug with himself because now he's in control of the ship, and he's now in charge and of the team, and he but he is so infected by this contaminant that is hit the entire ship that he's actually acting like a raving lunatic. In fact, when they had sent an away team to the Tsiolokovski, they found that everybody was dead. Everybody there died. Basically, what they had done on that ship was they opened up all the hatches, the air hatches, and most of them got blown out in outer space, and the rest of them froze to death. And the ship, not only that, but now, Wesley is like pretty proud of himself that he's got the ship, and Picard's like, hey, I need to get control of the ship again because we got this exploding star that's heading our way, and if we don't get our asses out of here, not only are we going to lose this game, but we're also going to die as well. So, like the really great leader that Jean-Luc Picard is, he tells Beverly that he would like nothing more than to have some really hot sex with her. But he wants to win this game first. And he says, you go make that antidote. I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong. Antidote. If you go make that antidote, I will, and we can win this game, and we can actually survive this exploding star that's coming for you. I will grant you your wishes sexually. So she gets to work, and eventually she does create the antidote. Antidote. Jeez. It's a word I don't say too often. And she starts hitting everybody, and all of a sudden they're back to normal. All except Wesley. He's still sweating, and you can see right here, he's sweating still. And but he suddenly realizes that, yeah, they are in trouble. They need to do something here. And so he takes his little science fair project and that he has hooked up to the ship's computer, and he does have full control of the ship right at the moment, locked everybody out of engineering, and he says, hey, why don't I use my tractor beam that I have, and I'll suck that Tsiolokovski ship, I'll pull it towards us, and then I'll reconfigure my machine, my science fair project again, so that it creates the repulsor beam, and I will shove that ship, the Tsiolokovski, I will shove it towards that exploding star. And maybe that'll give us enough time for Data to come into engineering, and he can use his super speed, his android super speed, to put all the isolinear chips back into their proper component spots in the engineering. So that's exactly what he does. He gets the Tsiolokovski in position in front of the exploding star. Meanwhile, Data is working as fast as he can to get those isolinear chips back into their proper spots, and time is clicking. I mean, they're not sure if they can make it or not. If he doesn't get all those chips back in the right spot, they're not going to be able to fire the engines and warp out of there before they get destroyed. But Wesley's trick may have just bought him a couple extra seconds from that oncoming defensive end, that exploding star that's heading their way. And as that ship, the Tsiolokovski, blows up, it does indeed buy them an extra precious few more seconds, and that's all Data needs. And he's able to get the last bit of those chips into their proper spots, and they're able to warp right out of there. And they carried the football into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. And they wound up winning the game 7-2. Actually, it was 6-2 because they didn't need to do the extra point. So they wound up winning the game 6-2. And it was noted that, hey, the whiz kid, Wesley Crusher, the new youngest star on board Team Enterprise, was an awesome football player and should be allowed to play for the team. He saved the day, saved everybody's lives as well. And it was his efforts at blocking that oncoming defensive end, that gigantic, massive exploding star. He was able to move that ship, the Tsiolokovski, into position so that they could score. They allowed him enough time for Data to do his thing so that Team Enterprise could score the game-winning touchdown. And I'm sorry, but the Lions still aren't going to get that win. And neither will Team Tsiolokovski. And Captain Picard changed his tune and started letting Wesley Crusher become a full-fledged member of the team and an acting ensign on board Team Enterprise. And yeah, it wasn't a pretty win for Team Enterprise, but it was a win. And it's hard to get wins in the NFL. And but the team, congratulations to the second win, 2 wins in a row for this young team. And as far as celebration, those two, I don't think they ever did get it on. Those two did eventually, and then they did get married. No, those two. In fact, well, she would die in a couple episodes later. And then Data, well, he doesn't ever get to experience that ever again until he meets up with the Borg Queen, but that's a story for another day. And before I end this video, one little interesting side note here is that, Beverly Crusher, the actress that played her, this was the very second episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And when she read the script, she thought, oh, wow, okay, I actually get to play a really cool, fun character who's kind of flirty and very likable. And, and then she was really surprised, as the rest of the season went on, that her character wasn't at all like that character she saw in the second episode. And years later, Will Wheaton, talked about that episode as well. He said, it was the second episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and the crew was finally all together, because in the first episode, they were just getting to know each other, and they encountered Q, and, they weren't together as a team. Everybody was in separate spots. They had the ship got separated, and they had Riker in one area, and they had Picard in another, and they hadn't met yet, and here they are taking on the Q. And so this was the second episode. Was the very first episode everybody on the crew was together as one crew, and here they are all getting drunk, and they're all like wanting to have sex with each other, and they're all doing really crazy things. Like, what the show did was it showed what each character's hidden desire was. Like Wesley's hidden desire was he wanted to be a member of the crew. Beverly Crusher's desire was she wanted to have a relationship with the captain. Troy's desire was she wanted Will Riker, and Tasha's desire was she wanted love because she never experienced it. As a kid growing up, she lived on a planet where there was violence and rape gangs, and she was able to avoid all that, and she did it by being a fighter, and that's why she was security chief. And so, Will Wheaton had said in an interview, he said, the second episode didn't really paint everybody in a good light. And he's right. It's a heck of a way to start out a series, where you get the crew together, and this is the episode. In fact, the episode even ended with Captain Picard saying, I think this is going to be a really good crew, as long as we don't give in to temptation. And so here we have it. Team Enterprise gets their second win in a row, and against Team Tsiolokovski. And now they are 2-0 in the inaugural season. And, if I hope you like this video. I hope I've piqued your interest. Maybe you want to find out how they do in their very first season. I will keep the story going, and we'll find out if they wind up winning the Super Bowl in their first season. All right, I'm out of here. I got to get back to work. I'm driving my semi-truck, and I also have a girlfriend waiting for me back in Wisconsin. I get to see her on Friday. So I'm heading back to Wisconsin. Right now I'm in Minnesota. I won't get to Wisconsin till probably late at night, and then hopefully I'll have a short run on Friday, and then I'll have a wonderful weekend. And I hope all of you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend as well. Wisconsin hugs.